Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
So the Leafs win a game they didn't deserve to, a game they were completely disinterested in playing for at least 50 minutes, and they somehow win in regulation thanks to just the most peak Leafs BS that I've seen in a minute. And we have quite a bit to talk about, a little bit of good, a lot of bad, but they win, which means I won't be quite as scathing as I was prepared to be. Welcome in to Game Over Toronto, everyone. Following a 3-2 Leafs win, I'm still digesting the fact that they won that game, because 50 minutes into that, I like I said, I was so ready to come on here. My plan for the show is I was going to open the show by asking, was this Berube's last game? And the Leafs managed to come back and win, which obviously is... What a weird game, man. What a weird game. Because I don't feel good about it. Even though they won, I don't feel good. But obviously winning kind of takes the sting out of the way that they played for so long. What a weird game. What a weird game. And there's going to be a lot to talk about after the game, because I'm mentally prepared for the Austin Matthews quote about the fans after, because they were booing halfway through the third period before the Leafs started the comeback. And then you saw Matthews giving it to his own fans. I'm ready for a Matthews quote about the fans after the game. So we're going to see if that comes out by the time we wrap up the show. But welcome in, everyone. We're going to talk about all of that right here. For those of you who are new here, be sure to hit like, hit subscribe. We're live after most Toronto Maple Leafs games. Feel free to come hang out in the chat as well and leave your thoughts. Wow. I've got no words for a lot of what I just saw, which is not a good quality to have in the host of a show. So we're going to process information together. As always, if you guys are regulars here, you'll know this. If you're new here, in the first segment, I like to go through the general game recap, the what happened in this one. Second period, a bigger story. Third period, a smaller story. Fourth period, a Q&A. But again, as you regulars will know, I run this as a Q&A, or kind of an interactive show throughout. So please feel free to leave your comments in the chat throughout, and I will check in with you guys periodically. I see David and Matthew and Luke are all in here, as always, some of the regulars. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. The Leafs need better cardio. They can't play a full 60. They need to take at least one period off. Yeah. Luke saying, I'm still grumpy about the performance, but what a finish. David saying, no doubt some well-deserved criticism for the Leafs. Yeah, a lot of criticism that we're going to have to get through here. We need to boo the Leafs off the opening faceoff so they could start earlier, apparently, and we're going to get to that. So let's get into this game here as we get into the first segment. First of all, part of the reason I was so disappointed with this game, for the most... I'm going to use the word disappoint. I'm going to use a lot of negative language, and even though the Leafs won, understand that obviously I'm talking about before the goals happened at the end of the game. For the most part, the reason I was so disappointed for this game is a couple of things. One, they were horrible on Saturday. We talked about that. They played a completely flat, uninspired game. And tonight, coming off of that, Joe Bowen Appreciation Night, which, by the way, David Bowen was doing the commentary tonight, which I didn't even know until I saw Maple Leaf Hot Stove post the clip. I thought Joe ran back up to the booth. I guess not. Is David taking over Joe's job next year? Is that what's happening? I have no, I don't know if that's the actual succession plan, but that'd be pretty sick if that was the succession plan. Anyways, it was Joe Bowen Appreciation Night. They put on a very lovely pregame ceremony, and I'm sitting there like, okay, you have this it's Joe Bowen night, 44 years of his life he's dedicated to this team, and you have that ceremony. You're coming off a horrible game against Edmonton, and Connor Bedard is out of the lineup. He got hurt. He's going to miss a couple of weeks for the Hawks. There was no excuse for the Leafs coming into this one. This was the game. Multiple people were saying it coming into this one. This is the type of game that you got to run up the score. This has got to be like a 10-0 type of effort. We have got to come out flying in this one. Nylander's up on the first line. To start the game, Robertson and McMahon were with Tavares on the second line. That would change later on as McMahon got demoted for Easton Cowan. Domi was on a line with Joshua and Waugh, and Cowan started the night with Lawrence and Lawton. And Joseph Woll is back, activated off of IR. Now, in the first 5 minutes, the Leafs had the puck more. They had the puck a good amount to start this game. The top line forced a couple of icings, but the Leafs were struggling to get shots through. There was a nice flip pass play where Joshua got in behind the D, but he hit the post on the little, I guess, partial breakaway because he kind of had a defender draped all over him, but he was technically in alone, so that was a good chance there. And then for the Hawks in the offensive zone in the Leafs end, off a faceoff when Cowan is unable to get around the forward making a pick, and Kaiser's able to walk in as a result, fires a shot, hits Woll's glove, bounces off of Toninato in front. Apparently, I guess it didn't because they gave the goal to Kaiser unless they changed that. I was convinced that it was Toninato's goal, but guess not. So 1-0 Hawks. And then as soon as that goal goes in, the Leafs died. Any energy, any semblance of energy the Leafs had just died after that. Hawks, multiple good shifts in the offensive zone. The Leafs had absolutely no energy. And then the Hawks have, on this third shift after that goal, crashing the net, multiple point-blank saves by Woll. Mikheyev drove the net, someone else got a rebound chance, and then Dickinson poked at Woll's pads and the puck squeaks through, but after a Leafs challenge for goaltender interference, it was determined that Dickinson poked the pad and not the puck, which is a big no-no, so that goal gets overturned, and the Leafs sort of woke up a little bit after that. They at least started to skate a little bit more after that. Nyes gets a little shaken up after going into the boards, but thankfully he was okay, and then Scott Laughton with a solo effort draws a penalty in the offensive zone, which normally is a good thing for most teams, but for the Leafs, it was not, especially with how that first period was trending. William Nylander, who, by the way, had a very bad game in this one. He just was fighting the puck all night. Completely flubs it in transition. Mikheyev to Dickinson on a 2-on-1. Tavares got most of a stick on it, but he only had one hand on his stick, so he's unable to fully disrupt the play. Makes it 2-0 Blackhawks. And then another 2-on-1 shorthanded chance for Chicago a short while later. Woll ends up having to make a great stop on Teravainen with his elbow. That leads us into the first intermission where the Leafs are down 2-0. Early on in the second, 3-on-2 for the top line. Nylander delays and hits Nyes in transition. It was a good pass from Nylander. Nyes gets the shot on, a little one-time or one-touch shot, but doesn't lift the puck, and Spencer Knight does make a great pad save to his credit. Joshua takes a high stick. He gets careless with his stick, like just skating towards the puck, doesn't even see the guy over his shoulder, just hits him in the face. Careless, but it's a stupid penalty to take. But Laughton would get a shorthanded chance. It squeaks through Knight, but it just trickles wide. That was a great chance for Laughton. Laughton, I thought, had a nice game. I said the Leafs, my notes here, I think I've told you guys this before. Sometimes I crack myself up with my notes because I wrote here, the Leafs have the puck more in the second, which means nothing is happening. According to Natural Stat Trick, the Leafs had 5 high danger chances in the second period. Where? I did not see 5. I was shocked that they were that generous to the Leafs. At this point, the Leafs just had nothing going offensively. Anytime they were in the offensive zone, they were just cycling around the outside, doing mostly nothing. It was not a pretty sight. Hawks were pressing towards the end of the second, and then Vlasic gets a penalty for tossing Robertson at the end of the period. Nyes gets a chance on that power play, actually taking it to the net. I thought that was a good effort by Nyes, but he gets turned away. Early on, or in the third period, Woll makes a great save on Bertuzzi on a rebound where, classic point shot, pad save, rebound. Bertuzzi was left all alone, but Woll makes a great save. And then the Leafs start getting booed halfway through the third period in the middle of play. Usually we see them get booed off the ice at the end of a period. Middle of play, middle of the third period, and they're getting booed because they have absolutely nothing going on. They have no juice, no energy. They're not skating well. They're not getting chances. They're not doing anything. So the fans are rightfully so boo them because they paid money to be in the building and the Leafs were giving them absolutely nothing. So naturally, like 30 seconds after that, the Leafs get a break off an offensive zone faceoff. Matthews gets the puck back to OEL. OEL flings a shot on and it somehow squeaks through Spencer. It deflects off Spencer Knight's pad and in. Leafs get a break. Plain and simple. Good shot by OEL. He's able to sift that one through, and that's exactly why he should be the one on the power play instead of Morgan Rielly. But I digress. OEL gets one through, his 6th of the year. Fantastic offensive season for OEL, and the Leafs draw within one. With 3:39 to go, the Leafs did get a little bit more energy after that. And then towards the end of the third, 3:39 to go, Cowan gives Robertson a nice chance, but then Robertson working in the offensive zone, he draws a penalty, a holding the stick penalty on the power play. Because of course, peak Leafs BS had to hit. Puck's behind the net. The Hawks have it ready to clear. William Nylander pokes it off the defender's stick. It goes right to Austin Matthews as he's coming out in front. Matthews, turn around, curl and drag, short side, top shelf, gives the fans the little "I can't hear you" after they were booing him. And suddenly the game is tied. And just as I was writing the note in my phone, off the ensuing faceoff, 8 seconds later, Troy Stecher off the faceoff just wins it, or like the Leafs win it. Stecher fires it in, it deflects towards the net, and it hits Spencer Knight. Spencer Knight is unable to control the rebound, and Dakota Joshua, through sheer hard work and relentlessness, wins the battle to the puck and bangs home the rebound. And suddenly, in an 8-second swing, the Leafs go from being down 2-1 to being up 3-2. And obviously, the Hawks were completely shell-shocked. They probably should have called it, completely shell-shocked, and they give a half-hearted effort at the end of the game because for the minute before the Hawks pulled the goalie, the Leafs were the ones who had the puck the entire time because the Hawks looked like they were still defending a lead. It's like no one processed the scoreboard after that because it happened so quickly, and the Leafs are able to escape with a win somehow, some way. Did they deserve it? Absolutely not, but they somehow win the game 3-2. Yeah. I've got nothing. Did it deflect? It looked like a set play shoot on net in the winner crush. It didn't. It deflected. It hit Knight's pad. So not technically deflected. It just Knight got a piece of it and it went in. I mean, credit to the Leafs for going to the net, but yeah, that was the game. Joshua's still looking good. Yeah, Joshua's been good. I'll give him that. I think Woll could have had the first one if he came out further, but not easily. The problem, I have to see another replay because it looked like he did save it, and then it just hit his glove and it hit off the guy in front. I don't know what actually happened, but that's what it looked like. You could get on Woll for having to catch that maybe, but I don't know. I'm willing to give him a little bit of a pass. I find it's at home they are the laziest. Yeah, they definitely play worse at home, which is hilarious. Matthews scored a nice goal, but he did not look good all game. Again, plays die on a stick. All three guys on the top line were fighting the puck all night. There was one play, was in the third period, where Matthews I think it was after the OEL goal, where Matthews is heading downhill, and it looks like, again, 2 years ago, that is a curl and drag and in the back of the net, and Matthews just completely flubbed it. I was like, all right, man, that's the kind of night we're having. Nylander had a couple of plays where he flubbed it. Nyes just was okay in this one. He at least tried to go to the net, but it is what it is. Yeah. And Woll stopped 2 of 25. He was good, man. Woll was very solid in this one. Him and Hildeby, I'm so comfortable with those two. I was talking to some people about, you probably go, 60-40 split? 60% of the games go to Woll, 40% go to Hildeby? That's probably the way you do it, hey? 3 out of 5 to Woll and 2 out of 5 to Hildeby, and you just ride it. Stolarz is nowhere close to coming back. We don't know what's wrong with him. We just know that he's not close and that he's seeing a specialist. So this is the tandem for the next little while. And as long as they keep playing the way they have been, both goalies have been fantastic this season. So I'm super comfortable with that setup going forward. The goalies were not the problem. We will get into one of the problems here in the second period as I'm going to flip this over. So with that being said, just a reminder, hit that like button, hit subscribe to Game Over Toronto, go follow the Game Over Network on social media. So let's have a chat here, folks. Let's have a chat. And I'm curious to hear your guys' input to this one simple question. I said I was going to start the show with this if they had lost. They won, so I saved it for this segment. Should the Toronto Maple Leafs fire Craig Berube? Now, I know they won. However, we cannot ignore what we've seen. We've played 32 games now. I think there are a couple of fair statements. We have a lot of evidence at this point that the Leafs are tuning out Craig Berube. We saw Berube screaming on the bench during the challenge saying we have one effing shot on goal. Berube's not happy with his team's performance on a nightly basis. The Leafs are clearly not putting forth the effort required to play the way Berube wants because Berube's systems suck, to be fair. But the players are tuning out the coach. The coach can't get through the players. So who do you blame? Well, the real answer is both are at fault because Berube's systems stink. The players aren't listening. So you have, both parties are at fault. However, the coach is the easier fix. So, I will say again, should the Leafs fire Craig Berube? Or, alternatively, is Craig Berube the guy? Now, I know there is a weird narrative online about the fact that, the Leafs can't keep firing coaches. Austin Matthews in his career has had 3 head coaches. Connor McDavid has played 1 more season than him and has had 5. So that is a stupid narrative. And Ovechkin had 10 coaches before he finally broke through. You could go around the list. The Leafs have actually had among the fewest coaching changes in the league. So should the Leafs at what point do you have to make a move? And I want to bring up I bring this guy up all the time on the show because I love his work. But Anthony Petrielli, who continues to just be the GOAT, he put this out during the first period. Can't break out, can't cycle. Your captain is completely unengaged, and so is your best offensive players. You get outshot and outplayed every night, and your coach calls it being patient. The power play is an abomination, which I guess they did score in this game. The product is terrible. What's it going to take for a head to roll? And then he said, irrelevant if they come back in this game too. That period was embarrassing following an embarrassing game on Saturday, both at home, both big nights that should have been the easiest thing to show up for. It's a fascinating question. Josh checking in saying, shout out Joe Bowen. Holy Mackinac will he and his stunning voice ever be missed? Yep. I would say no, but only because I don't know who I would want instead. We need an offensive coach. Tree's job would be on the line if they fire Berube. That I agree with. Give me a better name than Berube. I'm down. I personally can't think of one. Well, the easy one right now is Pete DeBoer. That would be the obvious one. But there's a separate problem with that, which is that he has a very clear and obvious ceiling as a coach as well. But the Leafs need an offensive guy. I fully agree with that. They need someone. And again, there's another fascinating kind of sub-conversation in that about Austin Matthews. Is Austin Matthews' decline injury-related? Is it Berube related, or is it both? The real answer is probably it's both. We're going to find out some heinous stuff after he retires. Matthews will probably be out of he'll probably retire before he turns 35, just based off injuries. So in half a decade, when Matthews' career is winding down, we're probably going to find out that he has some chronic back and wrist injuries or something like that. I know people have been speculating about back injuries. I don't know how to explain the lack, because his explosiveness as a skater has taken a noticeable hit. But also, Berube is deploying him like an idiot. So, Leaf fans would rather lose 5-4 over 2-1. Wouldn't everyone? At least you score and it's exciting. I know the defense, I don't know, man. And we've had this conversation before on this show. Berube's system is boring. And that's fine when you win. Last year, it was perfectly fine because they won all the time. And they made it to the second round, and they won a playoff series, and they won the division, and so we didn't complain. But this year, now that they're losing playing the same system, it's horrible. When they had their rough stretches under Babcock and had their rough stretches under Keefe, the Leafs were still entertaining. Now when the Leafs lose, they are horrible to watch. And let's play this out, right? Let's say they don't have that crazy 2 goals in 8 seconds and they lose this game 2-1. That's exactly what it would have been. Just a boring, horrible loss. And we would have come on here and been like, wow, what a terrible game. But they managed to win. So at least we had what, a couple seconds of excitement in an otherwise dull game. And that's why it's so weird, because the Leafs did play horribly in this game. Like, we can call a spade a spade. It's just, man. They showed the stats that Matthews is slower this year and has less bursts with a lower shot speed. He doesn't have that oomph anymore. Yeah, that part is injury related. I'm still convinced that, okay, let's say that it was Keefe still being here, because I don't have another example, but Keefe or other offensive, if Matthews was still playing in that system that he scored 60 goals, he's probably still a 45 to 50 goal guy. He's never going to score 60 again, but also scoring 60 a third time would be just crazy. Here's, I guess, another question. Is Matthews holding off of doing it? Have you guys seen this speculation that last year Matthews didn't get a procedure done because he wanted to play Four Nations, and this year he's not going to do it because he wants to play at the Olympics? I don't know if I buy that. However, if there's any truth to that, man, shut him down as soon as the Olympics are done. If there's any surgery that can fix Matthews, I don't care if he's out for a full calendar year. Sit him down and get it done, because you're not going to win anything with Matthews looking the way he has been this year. That's what the Leafs' whole setup is predicated on their elite players capitalizing on the chances they get and having as few high danger chances in the game as possible. Well, when your highest paid player and your captain doesn't have the same scoring touch that he used to, that is a lot harder of a style to play. A lot harder. So it's a fascinating question. I will say, it's from James Myrtle, it has not always been pretty, that's for sure, but the Leafs are 7-3-3 in their last 13. That's shocking. That is shocking. I can't believe that, man, because they've looked horrible the last couple, but hey, they won, so who cares? All right. With that being said, I'm going to turn us over to our third segment now. And as always, a reminder to hit that like button and subscribe to Game Over Toronto. So, we've had a lot of negativity on the show so far. So, now we are going to switch up and have a little bit of reason for optimism. One of which, Joseph Woll is back. You have two functional goalies that you can rotate back and forth. That's obviously going to help. But for another major reinforcement is on the way. Chris Tanev was skating in a normal jersey at practice the other day, or yesterday. His return is imminent. I don't know if he returns Thursday against Washington, but he probably returns this weekend, either as Nashville, is it, and then Dallas on Sunday. Chris Tanev's return is imminent, and I cannot express how monumental of an impact that is going to be. Chris Tanev, far and away the Leafs' best defenseman. Getting him back into the fold is going to work wonders for just the back end in general, and being able to move the puck out of the zone, complete breakout passes. It is going to work wonders. So the Leafs will now have 5 out of their 6 healthy defensemen in the lineup. It'll be Riley, OEL, McCabe, Tanev, Benoit, Stetcher, whatever the pairings end up being. I don't care. The point is 5 of 6, and Benoit was a regular to start the season before Stetcher got here. So you have most of your D-core healthy. There is reason to believe that the Leafs could presumably be playing at as close to full strength as you can reasonably expect for the middle of the season, honestly. So they've started to pick it up as of late before the hiccups last week. The Leafs now, after that game, where do they sit? After that game, the Leafs are 1 point behind Florida for 5th in the division, but they're also 4 points back of Tampa for 2nd place in the division. So the Atlantic remains incredibly tight and close. So again, we're getting closer to Christmas. We're a week away from Christmas. If the Leafs had lost tonight, I would have been like, wow, the Leafs could be last in the Atlantic by Christmas. And they still could. The Leafs could also be 2nd in the Atlantic by Christmas with the 4 games we have left before then. That would be hilarious. But there's actually reasons for optimism, man. I kind of had a bad thought of hoping Matthews doesn't get better until after the Olympics. Get better, play better. I will say, actually, Matthew, you know what would be hilarious? What if Matthews goes to the Olympics and snipes like a goal per game and is like absolutely unbelievable and looks like his 2023 self, scoring like 1.2 goals per game or something, and score as like 1.5 points per game and completely carries the States? How hilarious would that be if he like actually looks unreal and then comes back and plays like this? And it's like, well, what is Berube doing to this guy? That'd be really funny. Will firing Berube work? It's tempting to think it will. It's also tempting to think... Okay, well, I can't speak on the NBA, but as far as will firing Berube work, I don't know. What I do know is having Berube has not been working this season, and at some point you got to try things. However, I will say, going back to the point I think Matthew made earlier, if Berube's gone, you got to strongly consider Tree Living as well. Because the vision that those two have had is just not... I'll give it the rest of the year, but if the Leafs do miss the playoffs, blow that front office and coaching staff up to the core. Because absolutely not. Benoit out for Tanev, it'll probably be Thrun. I think Benoit stays in until Carlo gets back, but Carlo might not be back. Or, no, Carlo will be back in 3 weeks, so... to start the new year. So second week of January, Carlo will be back, and then Benoit comes out. I mean, yeah, David, I understand what you're saying, and trust me, Morgan Rielly is not impressing me at all lately. They're not going to scratch Rielly over Benoit. I would be stunned at that. There is a reasonable argument that they should give Rielly a night off in the near future, but they don't have the conviction to do that, I don't think. The power play needed to score after the first one short. Yeah, after that shorthanded goal, man, thank God the power play scored, because you had to. You absolutely had to. So the Leafs, I will say, this is also the first time in a while that the Leafs have had multiple more power plays than their opponent, I feel like. When's the last time the Leafs only took one penalty in a game and had 3 power plays? I feel like that's a rarity. The Leafs usually, it's very increasingly rare for the Leafs to get more power plays than their opponent, but hey, good for them tonight. Leafs power play did score all this. Yeah. The Leafs were dead even on special teams, but hey, in a game like this, I guess we'll take it. We don't really... Beggars can't be choosers at this point, so we'll take it. All right, with that being said, I'm going to turn us over to our fourth and final segment. This is the part of the show where we invite your questions, and apparently I accidentally screwed up where my overlays were. Ignore that. So with that being said, if you guys have any Leafs-related questions or hockey-related questions or questions in general, this is the part of the show where it is time to ask those. So as always, a reminder, hit like, hit subscribe, follow the Game Over Network on social media as well. I am going to check on what is going on with Leafs Twitter, or if there's any quotes coming out. I don't think there is. A buddy of mine messaged me. He said, I said peak Leafs BS at the end of that game. He's like, when you realize we get another week of Berube because of it. Let's say they fire Berube because his coaching style isn't right. What style is? A style that emphasizes speed, and like the Leafs have to be faster. If you look at some of the best teams around the league, you look at the Colorados, the Edmontons of the world, that even, like, I know that Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid are outliers in terms of skating. However, the point is, if you look at the other players on that team, those teams play faster. You need a coach that will encourage the Leafs to play faster. I don't necessarily care about the skating. The Leafs have some guys that are fast, but you need them to play with more speed through the neutral zone. You need them to emphasize zone entries, controlled zone entries a little bit more. You need to find that balance between forecheck and control, and you have to work on just transporting the puck, right? Way too often under Berube, my biggest problem with the Berube system is it emphasizes the off the glass and out approach from the D. Just get the puck out at all costs and then go win a battle to get it back. I would prefer a approach that is more focused on controlled zone exits, transporting the puck effectively, and getting the puck up to the forwards in the neutral zone so that they can decide in the neutral zone whether they want to dump it in or skate it in, because the players aren't dumb. They do need direction, but you need to play quicker. You have to be able to transition from defense to offense quicker. And then once you're in the offensive zone, yes, they need to get to the net more, but they just got to play more decisively. And that like with more intention, more purpose. And I know that's partly what Berube has been trying to get them to do, but I don't think he's doing it in the best way. If the Leafs following the Christmas break are 6 or more points out of a playoff spot, do you see the pressure growing in the front office to trade more than just fringe players? Yes, but at the same time, I don't know what move they could make in season. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I don't know what move they would have the conviction to make mid-season. I would be very interested to see what kind of Morgan Rielly trade you can work in season. I would be very interested. I would ship Domi off to Siberia, but I guess he's more of a fringe player at this point. I would be interested to see what's out there for a piece they could bring in. Like if you trade a couple of these fringe pieces like Michelli, like Järnkrok, like Domi, and you free up the cap room, what kind of bigger piece they could bring in, if they can, I don't know. I would say the pressure is already kind of on them to make a move though. But I don't know. They don't have a lot of pieces because they traded them all last year. And they don't. Yeah, I don't know. It's a fascinating question. I don't know if I have the right answer for it because the Leafs have not earned a move, right? The Leafs have not earned a trade from the front office to reinforce this lineup. So the other option is you sell a piece. Do you sell? It'd have to be like a Carlo type of move, probably. Do you play Woll Thursday to get him back up to speed faster than Hildebeest on Saturday? I alternate. Honestly, I'd play Hildebeest, or it probably Woll is probably playing on Thursday, and then I'd play Hildebeest versus Nashville and then Woll again versus Dallas, because Woll is the better goalie. And so I want Woll to be in against Dallas on Sunday. Although, got to be careful because Mikko Rantanen has quietly been on a just path of destruction, injuring everything in his path. So, got to be sharp for that one because he's been a little bit of a menace out there, Rantanen has. So be careful for that Sunday game. What do you think of the McMahon, Tavares, Robertson line? Did not like it. Although, to be fair, I didn't like anyone in this game for the first 50 minutes, so I'm willing to give it another chance. But I think I would rather McMahon, Tavares, Cowan. Because Cowan, for as much as he's kind of him and Tavares just work well together, so I'd probably go those two. How bad does this season need to get before we consider tanking? I don't think there is any way this team will tank this season. Unless it would take both Matthews and Nylander going down for the season for the Leafs to tank. Like, genuinely. Because they're just too talented to tank. Like, even if they sold off a Carlo, sold off a Scott Lawton, I don't know. If they started to sell off some pieces, they're still too talented to bottom out. So your best case scenario would be finishing like, I don't know, with presumably like a top 8 or 9 pick and hoping for the lottery balls to hit. But then if they don't, you just gifted Boston a top 10 pick. So I don't think they're going to tank. If they had their first, I would be more open to it, but they don't have their first. So would you do Domi, Robertson, and a 2027 third for Kiefer Sherwood? What's Sherwood been? Yeah. Sherwood DB. 17 points in 33 games. 13 goals. That's nice, but maybe. Nah. Actually, what's his contract? How many years does Sherwood have left, and what's his cap hit? Vancouver, where are you? Sherwood he's an RFA for 1.5. Yeah, it's too much. I don't want to give up Robertson, and I don't want to give Robertson up in that deal. I would do a pick for rental because he's basically, it'd be like a mercenary type contract. Like, you're here for half of a year and go score some goals, bolster the third line. I don't know. I'd be open to it, but yeah. Maybe it'll be if the Leafs fall well out of the standings. Yeah. Although I will say, David, the Quinn Hughes trade, while monumental and honestly good on the Canucks for recognizing that they were kind of screwed in that and getting out of it, that's the reason they traded Quinn Hughes, is because he was like, I'm not extending with you. The Leafs are not in that situation. It's very, very different context behind the Quinn Hughes move compared to where the Leafs are right now. So not a comparable to me. Leafs have traded away too many high draft picks for rentals. Is it time to change that strategy? Yeah. I mean, to be fair, last year they did not trade for rentals. They traded for Lawton and Carlo, who are still here. And Carlo's got another year after this. So the Leafs, what they did last year was a lot closer to what you should do. Now, you can argue, did they make the right trades? And there's a very good argument that no, they didn't. But, oh boy, I'm about to get on Austin Matthews or something. But, they at least traded for guys with term last year. That said, you can only do those kind of moves every other year, right? So the Leafs, they did them last year, so they can't do them this year. Then next year, they'll probably trade, was it the 2027 first or 2028 first? They'll be able to trade next year. So if they're good enough, that is, which remains to be seen. Okay, I have to bring this up. I was waiting for this. And I'm assuming there's going to be another quote that comes out here in the next few minutes. So first of all, this Berube on what set him off on the bench during the first period. Oh, it could have been a number of things. He was clearly mad. Dakota Joshua on the early booing. No surprise. Oh, this is going to be interesting. So Dakota Joshua, no surprise there. If I was a fan, I wouldn't be too happy with the performance either. They have every right with what we were putting out there. Nice to pull that out for them. We knew if we played our game, we could come back. Remember that. Dakota Joshua says, we did not play good. The fans are justified. Craig Berube said, I could have been mad at a number of things. We were not playing good. Austin Matthews, it was a nice win. I think other than maybe the last 10 minutes of the first period, I thought we played pretty solid. I think it just got away from us after 10 and a couple of bad breaks. We stopped taking care of the puck and turnovers were an issue. Joshua and Berube, and I assume guys like the guys that think, bad game. Austin Matthews, yeah, I thought we were solid. The disconnect between Matthews and Berube, shocking. It's shocking. I'm waiting for Matthews' quote on the fans. I'm waiting. So I want to see more Berube quotes. Because Maple Leaf Hot Stove, Alec Brownscombe just put up the quotes after the game. On the team's start to the game, the first part of the first period wasn't a terrible start. It was actually a good start to the game. That's why I said they just didn't get any shots. The second was never mind. Berube is actually saying they were pretty good too. What were these guys seeing? Okay, maybe I lied. Maybe they are on the same page and they're both deluded. That's not good. We got out-muscled around our nose, the simple things. That's why I was pissed off. Okay, that's fair. I don't like this. On why a 60-minute effort continues to elude the team. This is from Berube. If you watch the games, there are momentum shifts in a game, right? But you don't need to break. You can bend, but the 2 or 3 mistakes we made early on in the game are what upset you. There's no need for it. So he's arguing that no one has a full 60-minute effort, which that's not true. That's just blatantly a lie. He said he thought the top line played really well, which is interesting. Oh, I don't know. I'm not. Ekman Larsson on the game. It was a weird one, to say the least. I don't like those quotes coming out. Oof. I mean, I like the quotes from Joshua and Ekman Larsson. I don't like the quotes from Matthews, and I don't like the quotes from Berube. The Leafs have traded. Oh, no, I already read that. It seems too often this season I'm Only Sleeping has been the perfect Beatles song to describe the Leafs' poor play. Honestly, yeah, there's a lot of, like, any kind of song that depicts apathy, being lethargic. That's how the Leafs are. Matthews for Crosby in a 26-second. Well, don't think you're going to sell a lot of people on on that one, but yeah, man. I mean, Matthews has to be better, but he did score. Matthews had a goal and an assist in this one, so I won't give Matthews too much grief for the output, but the eye test certainly wasn't great. Oh my Lord. Dude, the Wild are just going crazy this week. After the Hughes trade, they beat Boston like 6-2, and they're up 4-0 on the Capitals right now. They're playing unreal. And also, those Wild jerseys, like the bright green, like the North Star inspired ones, beautiful. Beautiful jerseys. I know people in like the old North Star fans have a weird, and the Wild fans have a weird relationship with the North Star stuff, but yeah. All right. Aside from that, folks, I think that's going to be it for this one. So thank you so much for watching. Again, be sure to hit like, hit subscribe. I'll be back on Thursday following Leafs Caps. And aside from that, yeah, enjoy the rest of your night, everyone. Thanks for being here. For all you that have been here. I don't know if I explained that very well. However, the point still stands. Thank you for being here. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.